Welcome, friends. My name is Silas Ollegario, and I'm the host of Think Onward, a podcast about books, studies, productivity, and lifestyle. Now, after the intro. And here we are again. Welcome again to another episode of Think Onward, the podcast. Yes. Great day so far. Great day I've been having. I can say by me, right? It's just the second day of June. It's just the third day of the week. But every time we're starting a week, every time we're starting a new month, I have this thing that we all have the opportunity of doing something better, doing something greater, doing something more. I'm not 100% happy with myself because I was in the end of the month of May. I was, oh my God, this month of June, I'm going to work out like crazy, like I've never worked out before. But it is already the second day, going to the third day of the week, and I still haven't been to the gym. My wife is on vacation, and because she's on vacation, we are enjoying the moment she's having at home without working because, let's face it, we are all at home. The pandemic is still on, and Rebecca is still working from home, but she's working the entire day, and now I have time to watch movies and TV series and doing stuff in different times. So, for example, today we woke up early, went to have some things done outside the house, and then we went back home. Let's have breakfast, and it was already 11 a.m. So, okay, why not? And we started having breakfast, and well, we did not have lunch today. That's the other good part of being an adult and being the owner of your own nose, which sounds weird to say. But anyway, I hope you guys are doing okay. I hope you did differently than I did. I hope you started this month of June like we're always supposed to start things. With great expectations ahead. And in case this is your first time here, I'm Silas, your host for the next 25 to 30 minutes. Silas, Brazilian, 32-year-old married man, in love with my wife Rebecca, and getting ready to move to Canada, Calgary pretty soon. Yes, next couple of months, you guys are gonna have news. But well, everything in its time. And pre-med student, yes, because I'm officially a student at the University of Calgary. Yes, not anymore the MRU student because I officially changed. Don't have my spot anymore at MRU. University of Calgary is a little bit cheaper, a little bit better for my path to becoming a physician. And I love reading, I love productivity, and absolutely love talking and speaking. And talking and speaking about these things and about so many other things. And that's why I created this podcast, so I can talk about these things and I can have guests over who also love talking about stuff. And because one of the topics we carry is the one of books, today is a book episode, but differently than the one we had last week. But okay, let me start fresh. This past month of May, I've read some books, and I'd like to briefly talk about them all because this is one of the things missing from this podcast, because at the intro, I say it's about books, studies, productivity, and lifestyle after the intro. But the thing is that not every time, not every episode we talk about these things. And that's a good thing about being the host of your own podcast, because you can talk about anything you want. But you have to consider people follow you. People watch and people listen to you, and they expect to maybe listen to some kinds of topics and maybe having a direction so you know where you're going. Because if you don't know where you're going... John Maxwell, I think that's the guy who said this. If you don't know where you're going, you're not leading, you're just taking a walk. So knowing where I'm going with this podcast and with the episodes is so important for me. And because one of the things that was noticed was missing from this podcast is talking about the books I love so much. And once we suggest and talk about books, we also have to make some sort of reviews. Not like the one I make on my YouTube channel, but a review whatsoever. And again, in case you're new in here, I have a YouTube channel, and there the videos are shorter and might even be considered a little less specific than the podcast. because in there I have to be a little bit more concise when talking about any of the things I enjoy for obvious reasons, right? Don't Nobody wants to listen to watch a nobody talking for 25 to 30 minutes, and so that's the reason it's more concise in there. But go there, check it out. YouTube, just my name, Silas Ollegario, Ollegario with two L's, and videos there every Saturday morning and Mountain Time. So let's go. Books I've read in May. There were 4 books I read this month of May. I would say 5, but the 5th book I haven't finished. I started but haven't finished. So, and it is officially a June book on my list and on my project. It wasn't the first one. Was the last one I read, but I'm gonna start talking about this one. Is Metamorphosis by Franz Kafka, which is the book we've talked about on the previous episode here on this podcast. I wasn't intending to, but I made a book review because that's what I think I'm gonna make. Sometimes book reviews. I know people like to read, but sometimes people don't want to read. They just want the information. So I might be providing the service of reading stuff and then telling people no, chewing and just throwing out there the information about the books and maybe information that is not on Google. So anyway, that's my idea, hopefully. But because I had a whole episode just about this Metamorphosis by Franz Kafka, I'm not going to be talking a lot about it today, okay? So in case you want to know a lot about this book, just go to the previous episode. I think it's episode 17 or 18, maybe 18 from this podcast, okay? That was book 1. Book 2, Napoleon Bonaparte from the Hourly History books on Amazon Kindle. I want to talk about these hourly history books things on Amazon Kindle. Oh my God, I wish Amazon would, invest in me and pay me to do stuff, or at least give me a bigger discount on the books and etc. For 2 reasons. One, I love books. And second, some books, I still live in Brazil. I still pay things in reais. And comparing to dollar, real is just ridiculous. And so some books are so expensive. Like I see my friends who live outside the country, live in America, in Canada, whatever, and they pay so little for the books. I pay so much money, and that's kind of unfair. But Amazon has this thing. It's called Hourly History. I already talked about this maybe in my first episode of this podcast because I read a lot of books from this list they have because they are books, normally history books, normally books about story somewhere. And it's a book that you are supposed to be reading in 1 hour. That's why they call Hourly History. If you are a fast reader, you can read in probably 1 hour, 1 hour and a half. It's definitely not gonna take more than 2 hours to read in the entire book. And it's a summary of this. It kind of tells the story of the person or the place or whatever it is that you're reading about on the book. But the good thing that because I have a system of reading, and I know I don't like reading more than one book at a time, but I do it for one reason. I like having something to read in the bathroom. I believe a lot of people do, but normally people are now taking more of their phones to the bathroom, and they are there sitting doing the business and strolling through Instagram. And so I think that is in terms of productivity is so much more productive if you're on the toilet, sitting on the toilet, and you're reading something, and maybe something useful or just something fun or whatever it is. So I normally have a secondary book that I don't mind taking longer to read, and I have it on my Kindle because it is normally the book I carry to the bathroom with me. I know it's weird. Sounding like this is kind of crazy, but that's the reality. That's what I do. And so it took me longer than 2 hours maybe to read it entirely because every time I go there I read like 15 minutes and that's it. But it's a great story about Napoleon Bonaparte. It's not a story about Napoleon. It's his life story, I kind of understood what happened and why he was the way he was. And the book talk a lot about facts. But I noticed that sometimes they fail on some kind of positions that, in my opinion, were important. So sometimes they miss. But in case you want to know about Napoleon and his wars and his lifetime, reading this hourly history of Napoleon Bonaparte is a very good idea. In case you have a signature, in case you sign Amazon Kindle Unlimited, it's part of the package, so you don't have to pay for the book. You already pay your monthly fee, as I do it here in my home. Very good. Third book, Onward, by Howard Schutlz. In case you don't know who Howard Schutlz, oh my God, I'm sorry. In case you don't know who Howard Schutlz is, he's the owner, created. He's the guy from Starbucks. He's not the guy. He's not the founder of Starbucks because Starbucks was before his time, but he was the guy who opened a coffee house in Seattle, Washington, and it was called Il Giornale. And having more money and growing his business, the people from Starbucks were having problems. I'm talking about is in the 80s, okay? And he went there and bought Starbucks. Instead of turning all the Starbucks he bought into Il Giornale, he decided to keep the name Starbucks because it was older in Seattle, and because he thought it made sense. It made sense. So he kept the name, and now Starbucks, as we all know, probably when you think about a coffee shop or coffee house, even if you don't enjoy Starbucks, if you think about a coffee shop, except if you're in Canada, that you always go for the Tim's. Tim Hortons is your place to go. But when people normally think about coffee and coffee shops, they think about Starbucks. So Onward by Howard Schultz is his life story as long as the Starbucks life story, and how Starbucks went great until the year 2000, and actually went great until 2007, 2008. But he explains that from 2000 2008, when he stepped out of being CEO, he was just the president, just the owner, how Starbucks went through some problems in terms of the way they were handling some situations because they were so focused on growing the business, so focused on having more stores and having stores in more countries and have bigger stores and having stores in every corner. The quality, not the quality of the coffee, but the quality of the experience went down. And for me, this is one of the most important things I read this month because I've read this book before, and every time I read it, I get something new. And at this time, first of all, you notice that this book is called Onward, and my podcast is called Think Onward. This is not a coincidence. I would like my podcast to just be called Onward because I like the idea of moving forward and doing something ahead and thinking ahead and creating expectations and actually creating stuff. And I love this. But there's another episode called There's another podcast called Onward, so much bigger. They don't talk about the same stuff. Okay, what I like to do, I like to think onward because sometimes you don't think ahead, but or sometimes you cannot act ahead at that point, but you'd have to start at least thinking ahead. And that's why Think Onward was born, was when I looked at my study and look, oh my God, the book, the name sounds good. I'm going to find it, but it already exists. But anyway, Onward by Howard Schultz, great book. Great. I'm sorry, it's not a great book. Let me go back. It's a good book. It's an interesting book because you understand what happened in Starbucks. And I want to talk about this detail. From 2000 to 2008, when he stepped out of being CEO of Starbucks, Starbucks was growing like crazy and etc. But the experience was decaying. And he stepped up again as being a CEO. I covered more about this on my YouTube channel because let me explain you one thing. On my YouTube channel, different than a podcast, because here in the podcast you understand that maybe you are someone like me who read a lot and read 3 to 4 books a month. But some people, this is a lot. Some people, they are starting their life of studying and working, and some people are already working a lot like crazy for so many years. But people have one thing in common. People who don't enjoy reading have the thing that they like to say they don't have time for reading. So for lots of people, reading 1 book a month is already a lot. even if it's only 200 pages. Um, might as well not read at all, right? Some people just don't read. Sometimes people start the reading in January. Oh, this year I'm going to read a lot, and they don't. And we have to understand that and accept that it's not people are not better because they read more, more books or more interesting books, as readers like to say. But I still believe that reading is something that people should do, and you can always incentivize people to keep reading and etc. And the experience of going back to the book, the experience of Starbucks was decaying. And I talk about this on my YouTube channel. I have a whole thing. I remember, I'm sorry. I went outside of the line. Let me go back. I have a YouTube channel. And on my YouTube channel, I talked about this book. Why? Because on my YouTube channel, every month, I suggest one reading. In the month of May, for the month of May, I suggested people to read Onward. That's why I read it again. And in the end of the month is when I suggest and I make the review. So if you go there, the video for last Saturday, the end of the last Saturday of the month of May is about Onward by Howard Schutlz in the review, a complete review of the book, plus the suggestion for the month of June. I'm going to talk about this later on this episode. Okay? But that's it. Good book. If you like business, if you like the way Starbucks does stuff, if you like the way he's smart, impressive, man, Howard Schultz is a 5 billion net worth guy. I mean, he knows one thing or two, or 5 billion things about being a successful businessman, and it's a very nice story to read in terms of these things. And the last book I want to talk about, and this I want to take more time talking about this book, is by John Maxwell. It's called Developing the Leader Within You. This is probably the most famous book from John Maxwell. And in case you've been living under a rock, John Maxwell is a great guy. He's a 74-year-old actually, leader, and if you want to hire him to have a lecture on your event or conference, whatever, it costs around $100,000. Just so you know how big this guy is. John Maxwell, great leader. He's a Christian, was a pastor for so many years. He's still a pastor, but I don't think he is a pastor still, in terms of leading a specific church, because for the past 25 years he's been going explicitly and exclusively in direction of being the leader and showing people and helping and teaching people and creating his company, advancing people and understanding more how they can continue to grow in their companies and continue to grow as human beings. And I have a friend, his name is Richard Hassel, and he is one of the leaders of John Maxwell team. He's one of the ones from Brazil, and he actually gave me this course. And in the course, he gave me the book, Developing the Leader Within You. This book is so great that so you can have an idea. This is a 30-year-old book, maybe the first big book of John Maxwell. He has written over 100 books. So a guy who's written over 100 books, it's not just any guy. And this book is the same book from 30 years old with 2 chapters more, with the specific details. And I'm actually also reading a new book for this month because this friend of mine, he gave me another course about John Maxwell. And I'm reading the 15 valuable laws of growth. But this time I cannot read at once, sit down and read like I did with the other one because it's just part of the program, reading 2 or 3 chapters before every class, so I have to wait. So it's going to probably take me the entire month to finish the reading. It's a course, a mastermind thing. It's kind of weird because I'm a pre-med, I'm pretty big, no one, and I'm there with people who have business, and some of people have millionaire businesses, and I just am there. It's a great opportunity for me, but it's also very overwhelming as well. But I am there, and I like to, you know, it's good that I am part of this and being able to be part of this. But this one, developing the leader within you, how important it is for us to understand our roles as leaders. Because even if you don't think you're a leader, even if you're not a boss, even if you're not, if you don't have a position in a company, you are a leader. And being a leader is a matter of your attitude. It's a matter of the way you act, the way you think forward, the way you think onward. Oh my God, another level of think onward. Yes, the way you think onward is being a leader. And what we've learned from this book, this amazing book, this is one that I can say is amazing, is because he teaches us how to think as leaders and how to understand that everything we do has a consequence in terms of leadership. How everything we do has a consequence in terms of the way we are preparing our teams. Even if the team is only yourself, even if the team is only you and your wife, your husband, just your family, if you are a parent or whatever, everybody needs to know how to lead well. Because one of the important things is sometimes people tend to think that you need to learn how to follow before you learn how to lead. But it actually makes sense if you learn both things, even though, but I'm not a leader, I don't have a company or whatever. But once you learn how to lead, you kind of learn how to follow too. So if you're part of an organization, if you're part of a family, if you're part of a group, whatever it is, this book opened my mind so much. I don't normally think in myself as an entrepreneur. I don't think I am. I'm sorry. I didn't think I was. And by looking and by taking these things and this personality, in looking through the different personalities he mentions in the book, and looking, oh my God, I do have so many of these qualities. I do have so many of these issues and problems, some things that I have to figure out. And in the book, as a summary, he talks about the definition of leadership, now which is influenced by what we say in the book. He talks also about a key to leadership, which is knowing how to and when to prioritize what. He talks about the base of leadership, which is character. And when it's character, I mean not just having a personality, but being true to what the principles are, not just your principles, but the basic principles of human life and being respectful and etc. And he talks about the challenges and the issues and but basically challenges we face, everybody faces as leaders are not, even if you don't think yourself as a leader, like how you change, how you conduct a positive change in your environment. Now, how you make people do one thing that if you're a leader, how you direct, look, we're going this way, follow me, let's do this. And sometimes when it goes through something difficult, and he talks about problem solving. And one, I think it was chapter 6. It was my favorite because it resonated so well with me. Yes, chapter 6. The what is different in your leadership? It's your attitude, the way you act, the way your attitude is towards what your goal is. Sometimes, how many times do we have goals in mind, but we don't act like we have these goals? Sometimes we just have the goals, maybe even written down, but we are not acting in direction to that. We are not acting like those goals are real for us. And he talks also in the book about the essence of leadership, which is being at service with others. As a reminder, it's very nice to point this out. As a Christian that I am, it makes sense because he uses a lot of the greatest leader who ever lived, which is Jesus Christ. Being a Christian or not, you have to admit that Jesus the Christ was, well, he divided history, right? It's before and after his name. So even if you don't believe the things he did the way I do, in this matter, in this thing that I'm saying, it doesn't matter because he was a different guy who divided history. And he talks a lot about being a service for other people, not acting, always thinking about yourself. And he also, John Maxwell, on this book, he talks about vision and how this is something that so many times leaders neglect. In Brazil at this time, this is June 2nd, it's Wednesday. At this time, Brazil is going through a very rough time because the president and the government of Jair Bolsonaro is being indicted. And indicted, I think that's the word. And because they're investigating the way he handled the pandemic in Brazil, which was incredibly irresponsible. And because they are investigating, we see this, how leaders lack vision. And because he lacked vision, he didn't fund Instituto Butantan, which is one of the places in the world who produces vaccine, and it is in Brazil. And he took a long time to do so. And after he decided, well, just so you know, almost 300,000 people died in Brazil by now. And it's still counting, which is the most sad thing. I don't want to talk about this. He also talks about the price of leadership and auto-discipline. And this is actually part of the next book I'm reading now, which is about more focus on self-discipline and self-leadership. And talks about personal growth, because I noticed that every end of John Maxwell's books, he talks about ideas that he has in other books, so you can get hooked. And believe me, it's not a problem, because once he does this, it's unbelievable how he works, because John Maxwell is incredible. And he is amazing the way he writes. I know he's not probably the person who is writing the things, his team is, but his teachings, well, a 74-year-old man who is accelerating and going faster and doing stuff even more and more by each day. It is funny because there was an interview with him and he said, oh, when are you retiring? I mean, because you're already 74-year-old man, and when are you planning on retiring? I said, I don't have to retire. I love what I do. And I love what I do, and I have to retire. That means I can continue to work. And I'm not slowing down because I have less time to live. And because I don't have as much time to live as you, the one who are asking me this question, I have to go faster. I have to accelerate, not to slow down. So by this, you understand the kind of man, the kind of guy, the kind of leader he is. And yeah, well, these were the books I read in the month of May. For the month of June, I have some already bought, some, and the one that I started this week, probably going to finish by tomorrow, is Being Mortal by Atul Gawande. I don't want to spoiler you. I mean, I don't want to say it is a perfect book, but it's close to being one of the best books I read this year. So, but of course, I'm not going to just spill out the beans now. I'm going to read it, and maybe next week, maybe the other one, we can talk about that book specifically. Also, this month of May, before we wrap this up, I'm going to have more guests this month, okay? We are probably having 2 guests for 2 episodes this month of June. So stay tuned, stay up to date in everything we're doing, and I hope you have a great week. Have a great weekend. I don't know when you're listening to this, but wherever it is and whatever it is that you're doing, if you're going, running on a treadmill or just working out or just doing the dishes, whatever it is, I hope you have a great time, a great moment, and that's pretty much it, guys. See you next Saturday, right, on my YouTube channel. Go check it out. Bye-bye.